I've had the great privilege of looking at some of the Cannes Film Festival winners throughout the years, especially lately, and a few have really stuck with me that I wanted to share with you. The first of these I finally watched on Internet Archive, and it wasn't the best print, so I'm hoping to get a better print of this and own it in my collection. But this is the 1998 Eternity in a Day, really strong film, and I'm going to do my best with pronouncing directors Theo Angelopoulos, which is how I think you say his name, starring Bruno Ganz as an older man who's writing, and just poetry has just been really special to people. You can sense that in how he interacts with other characters. And he's going through a series of memories, both of his life and what might be others. It's a little bit of a fantastical feeling, at least that's what I got from it, especially some of the scenes that are historically based that you see. And the journey is very reflective. It's almost stoic. It's hard to stay awake through in a way because not because I thought it was boring, but just because it put me at such an ease. I stopped it a few times and I would reflect on certain scenes, especially there's a really strong scene in the water from a historical piece that I thought about for a little while. There's a wedding or a post-wedding. I wasn't really sure. I didn't know the cultural significance there, but there are some people interacting and dancing. That was really beautiful. There's a great scene on a bus where he joins this young boy who at first resists his companionship, and we see that he's an advocate for this young boy. And for those that have seen the picture might understand it a little better. I didn't know all the context there as far as this boy has some terrible things that happen to him, and this older man, our star, is saving his life in some ways. But so I didn't quite understand all the significance there. But what I did understand most of all was the timeless just beauty, appreciation for the history of humankind that both our director and our main character seem to share. The best part about the movie are these recollections of life with his wife, and those really touched me. I felt very connected to that part of the story as much as anything. It really is something that might remind you, Béla Tarr I talk about on the channel, but mostly, and this is where I got a lot of this film, nostalgia. Some of you may own this because Kino Lorber put out an excellent edition of it. Now I want to watch this again. I talked about this in one of my Tarkovsky videos. Reminded me a lot of this film from Tarkovsky. And I do like this maybe even a little better just because I'm so partial to Tarkovsky. But nonetheless, if you like slow cinema, and this is slow cinema, if you're into that kind of thing, I think this might be for you. Like I said, I was only able to see it on that Internet Archive, and I've looked around online because I know this is kind of a famous director, and I just didn't find anything that wasn't an old DVD copy for like a lot of money. So if any of you own this or have some copy that I'm not aware of, let me know. I also found some VHSs, but it was kind of tough to get a hold of. So hopefully that'll get a restoration one day that's like a 4K mainstream. But until it does, I just appreciated even being able to access the film. Really powerful, really enchanting movie. And a film that I've talked about before that has a somewhat similar vibe and idea of, you know, passing from one world to the next, maybe passing away or trying to remember the history and the past and reconnect to memories. One film that I've always been a big fan of ever since I saw it for the first time, and I do have a DVD that I finally tracked down. This is called Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. And again, this is this director's complicated. Apichatpong Weerasethakul is how I believe you say his name. I'm not the linguist, but I believe that's how you say his name. Extraordinary filmmaker. Cemetery Splendor. There's another one that was on the that was on one of the famous list. I can't think of the name right now. I'll edit it in the video. Tropical Malady. Tropical Malady. That's what it was. That made the Sight and Sound list. Okay. This guy, this film, the cover really is what I remember whenever I was like looking at the Criterion Channel. This was what hooked me, was this image right here of the Bigfoot looking creature, because I love Bigfoot. So this won the 2010 Cannes Festival, okay, or Cannes Festival. And Uncle Boonmee, he has a disease, a kidney problem, and so he knows he's going to die, and he's trying to get his affairs in order. And he's out there living in the jungle, It feels from the very beginning like this is going to be a world of the supernatural, which if you've seen his other pictures, especially Cemetery Splendor, you'll know what I'm talking about there. And he's visited. He's visited by spirits, and he's visited by this. And you'll see what that is. But the spirits and so forth have more of a, almost like a Studio Ghibli feeling, that they're warm. They're in, there's something you want, even if at first you're a little afraid of them. This isn't a ghost story. This is a story of more warm memories coming back to you, almost maybe in the form of energy or something, and people that maybe you've forgotten about or you wanted to hear from again. It's inviting and pleasant in that way. Very relaxing. Also very easy to fall asleep to because it's relaxing in a lot of ways. And there's some segments in here that might kind of shock you. There's a really famous scene in here that I did want to point out before you get to it, that might turn you a little bit off of the film if you think about the film too literally. And that's an exploration into the past, okay? And in the past, you see this woman of noble means, or maybe she's a princess, something like that, and she's in the water and she has an encounter that will kind of shock and startle you a little bit when you come to that part. But if you don't think about the film too literally, I think that part will make more sense. The first time I saw it, I was like, what in the world is she doing? And then the second time when I was looking through it, I was like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense and seems a little bit just less like artsy cutesy. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of a little concerned about that. But that was just a bad take, I think, on my part. So upon reflection, I liked it better. But I say all that because I think some of the eccentric elements of this film have turned people off to it, and I don't think you should allow that to happen. It is a really fun, beautiful, stunning film. And I only have a DVD of this, so I really want to, and it's not, I couldn't get the best quality on my player. I want this to also get a really nice restoration, something that really does this film full justice. I have not found it streaming as much as I have some of the others on that format, so I just had to track down an expensive DVD. But if you've seen Uncle Boonmee and you liked it, let me know. I just really like this director. This is a director I would watch a lot of his films. I think he did Mysterious Object at Noon as well, which is within the Criterion Collection for those of you who are into that. And finally, since we're talking about that, let's talk about an old film of mine that I absolutely love and have loved for years and years and years. One of the very first great films I ever saw. This one, The Palme d'Or, Taxi Driver. One of Martin Scorsese's greatest films. It's frequently, I go between this and a couple of others as to my favorite of his. But Taxi Driver might have been like the first for me at the time, old film that was just like a drama, that I sat down and watched on a terrible connection streaming from like bootleg internet from someone's apartment, you know what I mean? And then I had to eventually get a DVD disc, and I wore it out. And I got a new disc. But Taxi Driver, this is a severely PTSD, this PTSD for this veteran here is horrible, and he can't sleep, and he's driving around at night within the city, New York City, and he decides if I'm going to do that, I might as well get paid for it. And so he starts driving a taxi, and I think in the process of that routine, he goes a little bit crazy. The structure almost does him in. Just seeing all the craziness in the world around him. Very nihilistic film. And very well acted film. I don't know why this wasn't an Oscar. I'm trying to remember who won that year. Harvey Keitel's in it with him as a pimp who's pimping out an underage girl played by Jodie Foster. And that part of the film, it's interesting because I have read since that Rob De Niro really tried to make Jodie feel as comfortable as was possible for that difficult of a role. But I think it's an important role because it highlights how people in a position of power can abuse and harm children. And the film does a good job, I think, giving some justice to that. The dialogue is absolutely incredible and riveting, and the Bernard Herrmann score is just perfect. The use of water and light throughout the film. I think this is one of his most cinematic films. This is one of the films where Scorsese was really playing around with the form and just having a lot of fun with it, despite how dark and depressing the material was. One thing that I noticed when I was going back to the Eternity in a Day film, That film used a lot of dolly shots and a lot of different tracking, just movement of the camera that was creative and fun and long and pensive and really caused you to think about what you were looking at. And here, Martin Scorsese did something kind of similar, but you may not notice it as much. For example, there's a shot where there's a pimp that he's looking at, and the camera goes real slow. I've seen this movie so many times, I can still remember exactly how it looks. And the guy's like, got a little toothpick in his mouth or something. And there's just that exchange of anger and rage, and it's used in a very different way than the director I mentioned. But nonetheless, like, the film gives you plenty to think about. He chases after a woman who is working in a political office, and that politics part of the film is a huge piece as well. It's a good role from Sybil Shepherd. And it's like Albert Brooks, right? The comedian, kind of in a comic role there working with her. Great cast. Peter Boyle, right? Just great cast. And it's one of those films that sticks with you a long time. I think they even had to tone down the blood to get the rating they wanted, right? It's love it. So I was like, what a time to plug a Martin Scorsese picture in here. But those are three that I like, that I wanted to share with you. And I would love to hear some of your favorites. There are plenty to choose from that are great. A lot of them are in the Criterion Collection, by the way. So it's kind of fun to go through there. Those of you that follow my Criterion content can look in there and see how many of those won. It's a lot. So anyway, if you want to click the like button for me, I'd appreciate it. And yeah, tell me your thoughts. Subscribe. Cody in the Cinema.